Hey class, I'm going to go ahead and just want to walk you through a cash budget as provided in our first data set 6-01. If I walk you through this, I know that the book kind of walks you through it. It's really important that you go through the book before you do your homework. You'll really understand it a lot better. But the most challenging thing I think with this problem is just getting confused about where the numbers come from and how they work, because it's really about timing. We might make a sale of our stand-up paddleboard in January, but we might not collect it till February. So because we don't collect all the cash from the sales right away, and maybe we buy something, we don't pay for it till the next month or the next period, then because of that timing difference, it can get confusing, and that's really the most confusing thing. And the key is to really start down here and get all these assumptions in. Right? If you get these assumptions in to start with correctly, then the rest of this is going to be much easier. And you'll notice that they named, instead of putting, B42, they put a name for this cell. And we talked about that before. If you go to data and you go to not data formulas and you go to name manager, you can see the names of these. So hourly rate, is provided, as a named cell, and you add these to your work. Anyhow, so we're starting out with, this is operating cash receipts. Basically, we're making sales, we're repairing stand-up paddle boards, and we're selling stand-up paddle boards. This is provided. They tell us we have 1,500 estimated hours times the rate. So we're going to multiply. I'm hitting F2 right now. We can see it's going to multiply B6 times the hourly rate. The hourly rate is 50 bucks. And this is how we get these numbers. So these numbers are pretty straightforward. The sales revenue is also provided. So this is the sale of the paddle boards, not the repair of the paddle boards. So our total revenue is here. Okay. Now, here's where it gets a little tricky, because we're not collecting everything right away. As a matter of fact, in the current quarter, we're only going to collect 80% of what we sell. This is an estimate, right? This is a budget, so this is based on historical data that we know. Typically, we only collect 80%, so we only want to put 80% here. So you could do 80% times B9, but because we're using named cells and we have the 80% down here, that's a more efficient way of doing it in a real world situation. So each of these is 80% of the revenue. But we also are going to collect from the previous period. So the first month, well, let's stick with quarter one. We're going to collect 80% in the first quarter, and then the 20% is going to come later on. So we're going to collect that in the second quarter. 80% is going to come in the first quarter, 20% in the next quarter. And so you see how that 92,000 is 20% of the third quarter's revenue. I'm sorry, 460 times 9 times 20% equals 92. The only one that might be confusing is the first quarter has to be given to you because it came from the previous quarter. It came from fourth quarter of last year. So what was it in fourth quarter of last year? Well, they provide you that information. Beginning receivables means beginning amounts that people owed you were $81,000. So you put that first number there. These are 20% of the next months. So that means that even though we sold $500,000 worth of sales of paddle boards and services, we only brought in $481,000 in cash. By knowing what we bring in cash, we can be ready to deal with a shortage if we have it. Now, we're also going to have to use some of this cash. We're going to have to use it to buy paddle boards, buy gear that we sell, inventory, right? Cost of sales. So the cost of sales, again, is provided. It's given to us at 60%. So if we made a $100 sale of a paddle board, that means 60 bucks was how much it cost us. So that means going back here, cost of sales. So that means B8. So there's my say we sold this much, it cost us this much to buy that stuff to put it in inventory. B8, if you double click, you also can see where it's coming from. Required ending inventory, meaning we buy a little bit extra. We don't want to just buy enough to put on the shelf and then run out. We want to have some stuff left over on the shelf, some paddle boards left over. So this is our ending inventory. Required ending inventory is provided, right? So that means they want 80%. So 80% is required ending inventory, 80% of the next month or the next period. So 240,000, 80%. 225, 80% goes there. So that's how we're going to know that. And then this is going to be provided for us, right? So this one's a little tricky because you need to go down to the product sales for next year, 500,000, right? And then you say, all right, 500,000, let me get back to this. 500,000 times product sales of the first required ending inventory, right? So you multiply by that, and then the cost of expected sales. So you have to work into that number. That's the hardest number on this line. The rest of these are straightforward, but this one you have to figure out what would be the cost of expected sales for next month. So you have to figure that out by first going to the cost of expected sales times the required ending inventory times the product sales for the first quarter next year. So that one, do your best with, right? So now you have beginning inventory. This is going to have to be provided because this is going to be beginning inventory, what was left over from last year. So they give us that beginning inventory. But then the beginning inventory is now going to come from the ending inventory. You notice anytime you end with the quarter, you start the next quarter with that amount. All right, purchases now is just an addition of all those together. Current quarter payments. Okay, so we bought all of this, but we're not going to pay for it all at once. We're only going to pay for, let's see, we're going to pay for 75%. So we're going to pay for 75% each quarter in the quarter in which we make the purchase. That means that we're going to pay for 25% in the next period. So 25%, and they have that 25% provided. If you filled all this out, you'll see it's a lot easier. So this will be 25% of the purchases from last time, 25% for the purchases of the last period. The only one you have to deal with is this 16,000. In other words, we need to know what was left over. What did we owe last year? Oh, 16,000. So that goes there. So now we've got a good idea of the cash payments for the purchases. Now we have the advertising expenses. All of these expenses are straightforward. They provide them to you. You drop them in. So now you figure out, well, here's all my operating cash payments, cash for purchases, cash for selling and admin, cash from operating activities, right? So you just take what we're going to bring in minus what we're going to use. That's what's left over. So we have 58,000 left over. We started with 25,000, and that was given to us. So beginning of the year, we had 25,000. That means we're expecting to bring in this much plus what we had to start with. This is what we're going to end with. So that ending cash is going to become the beginning cash for the next period. So then from there on, really it's fairly straightforward. This area here is just saying, oh, we're going to make a big investment in, I forget what it was, I think equipment or something. So we're going to make a big investment of equipment. We need to put that in. It's an investment. Cash going out is a negative. We're going to go take out a loan to help pay for it. That means cash coming in is a positive. Then we're going to start paying for the loan in the next subsequent periods. That's negative cash going out. By looking at all this, we can say, oh, cash from operating activities, what's going out, what's coming in. We're going to be short 15,000 this period. Oh, but good news, we got some left over from last period. We're going to end with this much this period. And that's really what this is about, is making sure you don't run out of cash. As you can see, just having sales does not mean you have cash. Sales sometimes comes in later, and that's why this is so important for you to learn. Good luck.